I would presume that if Trump wins, trade trade war, well, he started a trade war with China. I think it will be that will be the competition, and of course the world will be affected by that. But at least this is not about military. This is more about trade, and I think it's just a matter of how other countries like the Philippines would respond to it. It's really a matter of leadership also on our side.
And Prof, siguro balikan lang natin dahil ang Pilipinas at Amerika ay may matagal ng relasyon talaga, no? Ilang dekada na rin 'yan. Sa nakikita mo naman kasi magkaiba itong magkaiba ng pananaw, magkaiba yung polisiya ng pambato ng Democrat at ng Republican. Ano sa tingin mo ang magiging epekto nito sakaling manalo itong pambato ng Democrat at itong si Donald Trump, dating Pangulong Donald Trump?
Okay. Ang tingin ko kasi kapag halimbawa if Harris, the Democrat presidential candidate would win in the election today, I think when you talk about Philippine-US relations, kung anong impact ng potential Harris administration, I think what I can see is that Harris would continue the Biden's administration's most of Biden's policy, especially when you talk about foreign policy. So anong ibig sabihin dito? Ibig sabihin, what we can see right now in the Philippines na very strong ang Philippine-US relation, but if you really look at the aspect kung saan malakas yan, it's on the defense and military side and security. So if Harris will win, Kamala will win, it means it will be strengthened or it will be continued in that regard. So yun yung isa sa mga possibility. And of course, the strengthening of the mutual defense treaty and the military alliance between the two countries. In the same manner that under Harris also, it's not only the Philippines. I think Harris, in terms of foreign policy, would strengthen relationship, especially defense and security with its allies, including the Philippines. So when you talk about policy, I think Harris would be very strong on human rights issues as well and promoting democracy in the world and across the globe, but most especially with American allies like the Philippines. So expected yan na mga issues like, for example, women's rights, reproductive health rights, and especially abortion rights for women, probably it will be pushed kasi yan ang kanyang mga campaign narratives na pinopromote when she was campaigning. And when you talk about economic naman, I think Harris administration would still continue to have that economic partnership, especially when you talk about technology, innovation, and probably on issues that have something to do with climate change, so green technology. Kasi yan naman ang nakikita natin under Biden administration na sinasabi nilang, we have this economic relationship. So I think pretty much Harris would just be continuing Biden's administration's foreign policy and even other policy that has something to do with economics and social and even people-to-people ties and all of these things. So that's what I can see. On the other hand, when you talk about Trump administration, Trump to a greater extent will have from that when you talk about defense and military and security, I think a second Trump administration will recalibrate these things, meaning that it will be transactional more. Like for example, ang mga military spending or military funding na binibigay sa Pilipinas, when you talk about EDCA, prepositioning military assets, grant to the AFP and or to the Philippines when you talk about military, I think it will be there's a possibility ma-downgrade yan, ma-recalibrate yan, and there's a possibility as well for Trump to say na, if you want us to maintain military support and backing for the Philippines, especially when you talk about South China Sea issue, you also need to pay us. I mean, you have to pay something because transactional si Trump If you really listen to his campaign promises and campaign narratives, he's even saying that when he assumed and even the Gaza conflict to Trump it's more about America first, American first. So if it's American first, everything revolves around what benefits the America, what's the interest of America. And Trump is a businessman. As much as possible, when he spend money, he wants to get something out of it. So yun yung nakikita ko kay Trump when you talk about impact on U.S. Philippine relation. When you talk about economy, Trump has the tendency to be protectionist. Protectionist, ibig sabihin, poprotektahan niya yung market niya, poprotektahan niya yung industry niya. And at the end of the day, kung ano yan, kumbaga negotiation yan, it would always boil down that America benefits more than the other side. So in terms of economic policy, I would assume that he will be more protectionist in a sense that not necessarily only on the Philippines, but probably other countries like China, in a way that it will protect its own economy by imposing. When you talk about trade, it will probably Trump will be imposing more tariff quotas. I'm not sure though on the Philippines, but I would assume that it really depends on negotiations. So I mean, the current administration of Marcos Jr. really has to know how to navigate these things. When you talk about human rights, I don't think so. But I think Trump Trump has knows the Philippines naman in that sense, but I think there would be a shift in terms of ang pinakamalaking impact kasi diyan pagdating sa Pilipinas is the shift of foreign policy ng US administration if a Trump presidency mas ganon siya.
Apo.
With reference to the Philippines. Yeah.
Opo. Prof, may tanong si partner Val mula sa Amerika bago kami ulit magtatanong sa iyo. Yes, Val?
Yes. At this moment, Professor, what do you think by the policy of Trump, America first, will this benefit U.S. in terms of peace in the Asia-Pacific region? Us.
I think so. For me, yeah, I'm a bit more positive that if a Trump presidency, if there's a Trump presidency and Trump will win, it's a win. It's a win for the world when you talk about security, military, and peace. Precisely because Trump, I don't think he would want to extend too much, the military capability of the United States into other countries. I don't think so. Kasi nga, sinasabi nga ni Trump lagi, when I assume the presidency, I want conflict to be de-escalated. So if ganun ang kanyang pronouncement, it means that he is not inclined into the security, rivalry, and competition with other major powers in the world, which is, I'm referring to China and Russia. I don't think that will happen. The way it is now, what is going on now, that, there's really intense rivalry and competition security-wise between major superpowers like China, Russia, and the United States. I think that will be reduced to a greater extent, though I would not say it will be eliminated, because what I can see with Trump presidency, he will focus and he will emphasize more on economics and trade. So in that sense, I would presume that if Trump wins, trade war, well, he started a trade war with China. I think that will be the competition. And of course, the world will be affected by that. But at least this is not about military. This is more about trade. And I think it's just a matter of how other countries like the Philippines would respond to it. It's really a matter of leadership also on our side.
That's right. All right.
How
Thank
the
you so
leaders
much,
of our country will
Professor.
be able to navigate this kind of shift. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor. And actually, I have another question. You mentioned about the protectionist policy of Trump. Will this affect the Philippines economically?
I think so. By the way, Val, earlier you said it will benefit. Would it benefit the United States? Of course, it will. I think it will. In many ways, because it's at the end of the day, he said like America first. So it's a very patriotic kind of mantra or slogan or philosophy. So in many ways, of course, the first beneficiary of Trump's philosophy, if it's America, but if it will negativity, especially when you talk about the BPOs. Yeah,
Right.
the BPOs. If you look at isa sa pinakamalakas at na industry at the moment sa Pilipinas ang BPOs. But if you look at the BPOs, ang kliyente mo dyan is, karamihan dyan is United States, mga Amerikano. So, pag nagkaroon ng protectionist na policy si Trump, even focusing on that, he would want to bring back the job to the Americans. So that is a possibility. But of course, that is a possibility. We don't know. And again, I would emphasize, it really depends on how our country and our leader would know how to manage this kind of changes if a Trump presidency would be in power, and how to negotiate with a Trump presidency. So hindi naman yan automatic always. Ito ay mga possibility, but it's the way we deal with United States that matters when a new president that has a different trajectory, that's a different policy as against the Biden administration, which basically if Harris wins, it would be little the same in that sense.